Welcome to Brightly You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we use our good and bad experiences, friendship, and passions to inspire thought-provoking conversation and soul-driven advice. This season, we'll travel from the fool's journey to the hero's adventure to better help you create a life worth living and step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Tracy. I almost said good and bad advice.
Very true. We should update that. Yeah, okay, here's why. I actually have a reason why. It's funny that you say that or that happened. So you know how in the last episode, 105, Help Him in the Cave Again, I talked about what an experienced cave diver I am, metaphorically, and how I can't possibly have any more shadows to blow through. I've illuminated them all. I've gone to therapy. I've done the journaling. I've at Virgo. I've overanalyzed. I've done the work. And here I am in another cave, and it just keeps going, right? And so, since I'm now, self-actualized and perfect and whole, why does it keep happening? And then this morning and every morning this week, I've been reading this book, Conversations in Love. I've been doing a chapter a day. I can't physically, mentally, or emotionally do more than that because I am in tears the entire time. I clearly have many more caves to go through.
So you can't just play your way out of this cave. You have to do even more.
It just doesn't end. I'm not like saying I'm in a dark night of the soul or anything, right? But it's been really therapeutic, but I don't really intend to read my nonfiction book at 5:30 in the morning and weep, right? That's not.
No, I think that's actually a very freeing way to start your day.
I mean, it is and it isn't, because I'm every time I update my Goodreads with my progress, I'm just expecting it to be you're 80% done. And I just hit 60 and I feel no, we've been on this road a really long time. It's a great, if you have any sort of relationships in your life, romantic or otherwise, this is a wonderful book. Today's was about friendship, right? Of all things. And I have friends and I love my friends and I'm happy with them and I think they like me. And yet I wept, right? And realized and uncovered things that I'm not even going to say my inner child needs healing. Adult lonely Tracy is oh God. It's like I wrote it. Maybe I did in another parallel universe. It's by Natasha Lunn. If you order the paperback, just know it comes from the UK. You might not get it for a month. I ordered this and then forgot that it was going to take 2 weeks to get here. And then this is the book I alluded to 3 episodes ago, that after my healing with Akatra, where we ended up talking a lot about love and releasing a lot of stuff, it was delivered while she was still parked in front of my house.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And so I started immediately and I was all excited and it was this is a sign from the universe. And then I didn't touch it for a week because it was the universe made me cry.
Here's the thing, though. You know what? That happens. That too is resistance. Is that you're so excited about this, you pick it up and you go, oh, not this, or oh, I need to prepare for this, or I'm not ready for this. That's resistance. But now you said you're reading a chapter a morning.
Yeah. I want to be done with it.
Get me out of this cave.
Well, what's next? Like I said, I only got 40% left. It's a Friday night and I have no plans. Maybe I'm gonna cry. I don't know. maybe I'm gonna finish it. But what do I do after?
Right. We did talk. Do you feel with the tears, is there any way for you to look at them and go, not that we say, well, this is a transformational cry, but do you feel any kind of change?
it's not transformation like I'm the caterpillar and now I'm a butterfly. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's going to be any immediate transformation or like domino effect in my life.
Yeah.
But I think the transformation that's occurred is acceptance.
Ooh, wow. I like that. And no, seriously, I really like that. Here's the thing with, so I just read the intro, right?
Yeah.
And we have talked about this intro before where all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, hey, the intro is basically the show." And it wasn't until I had written all the notes that I was like, "Oh, duh. Uh
It's all the
stepping
journey.
No, it's the journey, but you step, and maybe not brightly, but into yourself inch by inch. And that transformation is a slow process.
And maybe, you know, brightly gets so many positive connotations or
Mhm.
like a happy, fun feeling. But I feel like this acceptance and this inner transformation, whatever's going on, and like there's probably a lot subconscious, unconsciously happening,
Mhm.
that even though I am sad, I think I am still stepping more brightly into myself because I'm doing the work.
Okay, I love that because you're using the word brightly almost like you're shining a light on what it is that you finally realized you needed to do, right?
We've ended the show. It took 106 episodes and we got to the point. No.
No, I love that I think that is really important. And I think I hope that people hear that and take that in. That brightly doesn't have to be like, be happy and bright and positive every day. It's just that to step more brightly into yourself, you do maybe have to shine a light on things that maybe aren't 100% right, or maybe that do need acceptance.
Well, and
Um,
like I got an image of, stepping into myself. When you step into your home, one of the first things you do is turn on a light, right?
oh,
So I feel she just almost spit out her water.
I did.
But I feel like I've turned on a light of awareness, or maybe an inner light of who I am, or a light that's gonna like let something, maybe it's not gonna shine out, but I'm now shining, like you said, shining something inward.
Yeah, there are times that reminds me, I do these strengths one-on-one debriefs with people. Um, so individuals, and they share their strengths with me from Gallup, you know, their insight report. And then we do a debrief. We talk about them. And it's interesting because sometimes someone's strength is shining out, like maybe their strength of, I don't know, developer shines outward, and they like to help people outside of themselves develop and get into something better or do something better or help them learn something. And sometimes it's shining inward, and they like to develop themselves and do more self-reflection. So it's interesting that we're talking about that. And I think that is a good way to think about it, that sometimes we have to turn that light on ourselves
Do
to
you
know what
ever
it is. Hmm?
do you have any experience with doing that or going through it and coming out the other end? So that's the thing, is like right now I need a lighthouse, right? Like I need something encouraging me to keep reading this book,
Yeah.
to keep doing the work. Like I had shared with you, this book inspired me. I'm going to start a reading bullet journal because I'm highlighting so much that
Hmm.
there's at least 5 instances where I just circled the page number and was just like, this whole thing. Save the ink. It's just this. There's a couple where it's like brackets of just 3/4 of the page, right?
Yeah.
And so I not only want to capture these quotes, but I also want to journal more on them, but keep it all together in one place so that I'm like doing the work. And we call it shadow work, or that term is, thrown out all over the place.
Mhm.
And so like one of the things this book is giving me is validation, because I feel like so often shadow work, or like seeing these TikToks we resonate with, or social media stuff, it gives you awareness, but awareness without the next step, or awareness without support, will send you spinning, right? And like shame,
Right.
guilt, head in the sand. And so like for me, I'm like, for a year I watched people talk about this book, how it helped, and then I ordered it, and then it came at a fortuitous moment. So I'm just trusting this bully that I know is the universe, that it's gonna be worth it. But like,
Yeah.
I had time this morning. I could have finished it. I definitely could have done one more, if not the two remaining chapters. And instead, I very enthusiastically put it back on my to be read cart and went and meditated for 40 minutes and just escaped the world.
I don't think, well, first of all, I don't think meditation is escaping the world. I think it's
Oh,
integrating the world.
okay.
But I also think that reading this book slowly allows you to process it. And once again, the same word, integrate it, instead of intellectualizing it. Because if you just read right through it, you would intellectualize it and you wouldn't take it in.
But also,
And I
like,
think,
that's where I'm saying, like, what's the lighthouse moment? Because, like, right now,
mm,
my lighthouse right now is other people have read it and it helped them, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
like, there's a chance these last two chapters could break me. And I don't like, my lighthouse right now is, I'm so sick and tired of being stuck. I'm so sick and tired of my journal entries being the same. I'm so sick and tired of these same spirals. Even if they're getting better, I want to break this already, right? Like, I
yeah.
want to move on. And so,
Yeah, so I will say that I was going to go in a little bit different direction for this show, and I think maybe we're just going to just run with this, because I was thinking that we've had a bit of transformation, and that now it's like I feel different. Now what do I do with it, and how do I integrate it? But I'm
no,
feeling
let's
like,
do that, because that's my lighthouse then. That's what this conversation. I'm so glad you said that, because I'm wondering what happens when I finish this book and like I'm broken open and I don't know what to do next.
okay, so here's the thing. Anytime there is, we said in the last episode, it's that death and rebirth, right?
Mm.
Do you think birth is easy? Do you think it's painless? Do you think it feels good? Do you think
Yes.
that, right? No, you're wrong, because I've done it 3 times. And actual birth, and even metaphorical birth, uh, writing a book, that wasn't easy. But giving birth to something, is labor intensive. And I mean that in all the different layers. It's labor intensive, it's painful. You feel out of control and helpless. You feel like, is it worth it? Sorry, kids. You feel like, there's just so many that you feel like, I'd like to change my answer and
I take it back.
and
I don't want to
and
do
go
this
off
anymore.
go off the board with what, like, yeah, yeah.
So I'm okay. Let's just run all over the place with analogies or metaphors or whatever it is that you say I'm really good at. So maybe these waterworks, these tears, what I've started going through has been like the water breaking, because a lot of what you described is kind of like maybe labor pains are starting. It's I've thought of some of these things before. I thought I've done the shadow work before, but maybe it was like the Braxton Hicks of it all, right? Because like nothing came of it. I didn't birth anything. It kind of stopped, or I stopped it. They
Yeah.
gave, I
Yeah.
gave myself a placebo and it went away. But like now, like a lot of what you kind of described, I think the challenge for me is that it's still that unknown that we talked about. At least you knew you were having a baby.
But
I
here's the
don't know what I'm
thing.
birthing.
But right, well, you're birthing yourself, but you don't know
I
what you're
still,
going to be birthed as. But
yeah.
yes, I knew I was birthing a baby, but my first baby, I didn't know if it was a boy, if it was a girl. I didn't know, like, there were so many unknowns. I had no idea. It was back in the olden days,
And you
Tracy.
also, I mean, your delivery date is an estimate, right?
It absolutely is an estimate.
And so
So
same with
you have
like this
no,
whole, you know,
yeah,
you're in a cave and you might think that you're coming, to the cave opening of it and you're ready to be birthed, or however we want to gross people out in their cars right now. But like, oh God, that does work so well for this. And it just, I mean, I don't know what kind of an awareness I had as a baby, but I kind of missed that not knowing, right? Like not knowing that I'm going through it, just being along for the ride. Like
yeah.
both hyper awareness of wanting it, of the process, and of the resistance and the defensiveness of it is exhausting. And I love what
Okay.
you have written next. And I want you to say it because it's yours. After birthing pains, it starts with a T.
Trying on the new you takes practice.
Oh my God, it does.
It does. And
And the new you, it's like every part of your life that new you's first day of school.
yeah,
It's never had to show up in your life before.
no. And in fact, trying on the new you might also mean
Your clothes don't
throwing
fit.
out that what?
Your clothes
Your
don't
clothes?
fit. You don't like them.
Exactly. Exactly. You might end up throwing out things that meant something to you before in your past life. You might decide to redo, things. You might decide to quit your job and find a different job. All kinds of things can happen. And please don't do that if you're out there going, I've been birthed and Amy told me to quit my job. Please
Yeah.
don't do that.
There's a difference between a manic episode and like changing your
Right.
life.
Right. And so then the question is, who am I?
So for someone like me, a lot of my big transformations in life just happened.
I know.
I mean, I may have manifested them a little bit. I may have wanted them. I definitely prepared for them.
Mhm.
But a lot of them, I was just all of a sudden presented with a choice and I went for it, right? And between lockdown and just kind of settling, right? Like getting a job I'm happy with, having this home or whatever, this prospect of something transforming, even positively, that's terrifying. I don't know how people do it this way. I now understand why people thought I was crazy for what I did before, right? Like,
Well, it is terrifying, but you yourself have said you felt stuck for so long. You're tired of the same journal,
yeah.
writing the same things in the journal. You want to get out of this stuckness. And so that's going to take some scary things happening, I think.
And I think some of those transformations before felt scripted in a way that I
Like
could
there was a
predict.
producer off
Well,
screen.
no, that in a sense I did have a tad. I had a bit more control and knowledge, right? Like I decided I wanted to go to grad school and I made it happen. And like how quickly things happen for me is why I feel like the transformation is provided. Is it just feels all divinely guided and supported. It's like I had this idea and then I made it happen. And right now, it's kind of it's a new experience because I have no idea, but I can tell it's coming.
Okay, that's the difference. Okay, I didn't get that.
I
So
can
you can
sense
tell
the
it's
horizon
coming,
is right, like something's on the
right?
horizon.
But you're not in control of what it is, of deciding what it is. What if you made a decision as to what it was?
I don't know that I could.
Okay, so you feel like this thing that's coming towards you is out of your hands.
So far, it hasn't been presented yet. Like
Okay.
I still feel like I have a choice. Cuz like for your huge transformational moments, whether
Mhm.
inward or outward, what was that like? Was it like either the experiences I described where it just kind of felt like it was suddenly there and you still had to take action, but like you're like, oh, like I'm getting on
Well,
the horse? Or was it
okay,
like,
transformational. I mean, I always go back to I don't want to talk about anyone else. I just want
yes.
so I'll talk about myself and with the whole Debtors Anonymous thing, right?
Mm.
It wasn't that one day suddenly I was like, I need to transform who I am and quit spending so much money and have secret credit cards. No. My husband called me at work and said I was talking to the bank about refinancing for our mortgage. And they said everything would be fine except for these 2 credit cards your wife has. And the bottom dropped out from underneath me because the jig was up. And I felt that was like, talk about a cave. So transform.
So in your instance, so for me, I've been talking about it as opportunities. In your instance,
Right.
a threat was prevented.
It was a threat.
Mhm.
And that's what spurred. So from that threat, then I had to first, because then it went into like denial. I didn't do it to, blah, all kinds of machinations trying to get out of that. Right. And then I had to finally look at myself, turn it on myself and go, oh, shit, you actually did this. And you have to make amends and you have to become a different person. So I did know that I would have to transform. I just didn't know what that would look like. And so I started looking at ways to do that. And that's when I found Debtors Anonymous, which is like Alcoholics Anonymous. They use the same 12-step method. You have a sponsor, things like that. And that got me around the corner of it. It helped me become self-reflective. It helped me open up more to Rick and talk about things more. And then I actually outgrew it. And I know some friends might disagree with me that they would say you shouldn't have left it because you'll need that forever. But it became...
Well, you'll need a tool forever. That might not be the right tool.
Right. And I do have a tool. The tool is now that we actually talk about money and that we have
Amy, look at what you have a podcast about. Like the topics that they cover in that and personal responsibility and accountability and development and growth are interests of yours, right? So you're able to capitalize on that.
Well, they are interests, but I tell you what I had a problem with. And maybe it's ego. I don't know. I had a problem with, hi, my name's Amy. I'm a debtor. Like, why would I want to just like anchor that in? Why would I want to do that?
Well, especially with what we talk about with affirmations and
right.
all that kind of stuff. Language matters, right?
Yeah. So with that, it was an uncontrolled. I had no control over the start of it. Got control. My husband and I, it took a while, got on the same page with it. We made decisions that maybe other couples wouldn't have made, but we made the decisions to move forward the way that we did. Got help. So Debtors Anonymous and saw a therapist. And that, it was like a twofold thing. And there are still times to this day that I'm like, oh, that's probably why I spent the money.
Yeah. So you're continuing to uncover.
Yes, I'm unpacking that bag still. But so that transformation, that was quite the ongoing.
Well, because I was just going to say, I witnessed within that journey for you when we did the cabin thing in August and I did a tarot card reading for you on this topic. It felt kind of like a rebirthing moment for you within that. And it's something that's been a 20-year journey for you. So like how many caves do you think you've gone in and gotten through and not gone back?
And Tracy, probably the biggest transformation happened right after that.
Yeah.
Right after that is where I finally became the brave person who I knew I could be, to have an open, honest conversation, to be able to say, hey, I feel this way about this topic. How are you feeling about this? And then it was from that point on, it was this easy conversation. A decision was made. And I'm a big girl again. So,
well, because it felt like at that time when you brought it up, based on what you had shared with me on this show, and then that your topic for the reading, it felt like you had hung out in the cave of responsibility and accountability for at least as long as I'd known you, right? Like that you spent a really, like, you maybe weren't doing shadow work there, but you weren't leaving the cave yet. You camped out there for a bit to prove you could do the work of that
Yeah.
cave.
Yeah.
And that reading and that huge change and shift after, because I saw how we interpreted the reading and like what it meant to you and how you started to like share what was going on with you. I was like, oh, she came out of the cave. Like I just got to see her as a breathtaking new baby.
Yeah. And actually that was kind of a fun coming out of the cave. It was like, oh, I can come out of the cave now.
It's like an up leveling, right? Like you unlocked a new world, right? Like if it's like a video game, right? Like you finally got to a checkpoint, you saved and you moved on.
I love it.
Like,
I think that, oh, go ahead. What were you going to
say?
I
was just going to say, you know, for some reason when I think of like caves and like cave diving, what comes to me is the, you know, 1999 and before Mario type games. And that even when I go back and play those games now as an adult with my nieces and nephews, I still get stuck and frustrated and quit at the same levels and the same part of those levels as I did as a kid. Like there's certain games I've owned for like my entire life that I always, and I have fun getting to that point. And then at that point, I just get frustrated and I end it. And so it's kind of fun to me to think of, you know, because like during the pandemic, I made it a goal to like, okay, let's keep going. Let's try a little. We're smarter now. We are more capable. Let's keep going. And it was just always so exciting to me, even if I still got bored with the game and quit later, that I was like, I no longer have to hang out at this level anymore, right? Like this is no longer my block. I have up leveled and I didn't need a cheat code. Like I did it. I put in the work and I did it. So but then I'm like, I don't want to work anymore.
Yeah. So I want to talk about when you have like either gone through that transformation or up leveled or oh gosh, it is shadow work, it is play work, whatever. What if you've done that work and you feel like a different person, like a new version of yourself, and your people, your community, your friends, colleagues, whatever, are still like treating you like your old Tracy?
I used to get really frustrated with that. I know there's a certain naivete that like I present at because I do kind of have a more childlike way of just coming in excited and with certain energy on certain topics or in certain ways. And so I know certain people have always put me in a certain box on top, you know, like I'm all, like they recognize I'm smart and I'm educated and capable at my job, but then like in an interpersonal level, like I can tell that I've been capped at a certain place, right? And I'm just not gonna get over that. And I've left some jobs because of that, right? Like
yeah.
There's nothing I'm gonna do to change. It's kind of like a first impression, right? Like you're just, some people are gonna keep you in a certain place. And it used to bring me shame. It still does sometimes too, that how am I not better able to represent to people? And then I go back to that thing. And I even recently journaled on it. I think even today, like other people's opinions is not your business. Like you don't have to overanalyze it, right? Like you don't have to deal with that. But it's still kind of like bothers me, right? Because it's like it's a level I wanted to achieve and I can't go back and do it, right? I don't get to go back in 20 years. But recently, when my grandpa passed, my aunt still works for a company I worked at 15 years ago, one of the first ones, and where I did feel like they saw me a certain way and they always were. And it was frustrating. And some of them came to support her. She's worked there like 20 years now. Right. And so I got to interact with my old boss, my old colleagues, a gentleman I trained, and I could see their impression of me change in their eyes. In both when they saw me just as a grown-up lady now, right? Like I was in my early 20s when I worked with them. So how I was presenting myself in discussion, talking about work and what I do now and just life. And then they're like, yeah, your aunt told us, you know, you bought it. We've heard when you bought a house, we heard when you graduated this, you know, and so on the one hand, I got to recognize that they still cared and somehow that helped me up level or feel like it did. But I did see, like, I saw like a recognition, a glimmer in their eyes that like, I made a new first impression that I did
Wow.
kind
Okay.
of that I could get recognized for something that it kind of felt like I was stuck in this cave
Yeah.
before, and I couldn't figure out in my early 20s how to get out. And now like adult Tracy is like, you it's not up to a 20-year-old to figure out,
Mhm.
like it just happens, right? Like this isn't.
Yeah, I think that, and I feel like I'm glad that you got to have that experience, and that you got to see their reaction to you and know that it was a new first impression. I think that when I think about things like, well, even just like Rick, like say I've turned a corner with something, and maybe it's not even something huge and big, and I've decided like, all right, this is how I'm going to react from now on. And it is how I react from now on. But yet it still seems to be something that's brought up like, well, you always do this. I'm like, well, when was actually the last time I did that? Or I might even say, yes, I did used to do that, but now I do this. And so that's okay.
You need to read this book. She
Oh,
actually
really?
she said something in here about, so what I was kind of crying about, or like one of my little thing shadows that I work on is I kind of turn over a lot with friends, and like I transferred colleges, I leave
Mhm.
jobs, right? So I know people mean well, and like when we reconnect, we have fun, but I don't have a ton of shared history with people. I have
Mhm.
years of checking in every few months, right? But she mentioned, like people with shared histories don't get like that benefit of being seen for who they are now.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas
Family.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I,
that that's something I'm taking for granted, is that I constantly, in the majority of my relationships, get to present myself how I want to.
yeah. That is a really good point. And I think that, yeah, sometimes with those long-term relationships, they just look at you as if you're still 14, and that you're still reacting as if you're 14. Um, One thing, in case people don't know, we're actually still talking about the heroic journey. This is the last leg of it. This will be the last episode of the heroic journey. And this part is that death and rebirth, the return. And that's, will people even recognize you when you return? So that's sort of what we were just talking about. It's amazing how these things can keep on track. And then one of the last parts of the journey is bringing back the elixir. So it's like, if you've been on this adventure and you're bringing back this, the spoils of what you went out to find. And when I think about bringing back the elixir, part of that, it's like sharing. I feel like it's literally what we do here. We bring back the elixir because we share the trials, the journeys, the things that we're doing. Um, there's a quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to. I didn't make it up. Your mess is your message. And it's just
Mm.
sort of like everything that you've gone through. If you share it with people, and if you do it in a way that is hopefully helpful, that is the elixir that you're bringing back from your personal journey.
So I have a quote from Conversations in Love by Natasha Lunn.
Mhm.
And she says, "It is up to us to tell our friends who we are and to be curious about who they are today, too."
My gosh.
Amy, like, I should be marking every time it makes me cry. That's what I should have been tracking, right? Like, I've inspired 2 different people to buy this book just with like single quotes. Like that, just like, but like how beautiful is that, right? And like how
It
often do we
is.
take for granted, especially like I have a friend where we just kind of end up texting day-to-day stuff, and then occasionally we get together, we might vent or whatever, like hang out, but like how much do I really share with her about my personal transformation, right? And
Yeah.
not every friend can hold everything for us, right? So I know I
Mhm.
have in-depth conversations that I record with you, but like, do I make it a point to then make sure she knows too, or check in with her specifically on like how she's transforming? Because she doesn't have a podcast.
Listen, everyone.
Get a podcast. It's great therapy.
Yeah. You'll have growth and rebirth and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, so okay, so we came out the cave. I'm coming out. I'm being birthed. I don't know what I'm gonna be yet. I have a good idea because I've been reading and I know what shadows I'm working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But I think what's also interesting is past a certain age of development, you're responsible for coming up with who you are. And
Yeah.
so
And
that's a little scary too, that
it
like
is scary, but I think there's something that you and I have talked about a lot, and we did it for the show, and we did it for ourselves, we did it for the show, what our values were.
Mm,
And it was so beneficial to me to actually name what my values were, because then it sort of leads me in the direction that I want to go. And then I feel like if you name what your values are, you can name what your beliefs are, and then you can name your standards, like your minimum, Tony Robbins calls it the minimum benchmark for your life. Like if you can just do however you feel about Tony Robbins. Anyways, I feel like sometimes we are comfortable sitting in that, who am I? I don't know. It'll just come to me someday. But maybe there is a little bit of work that has to
but
go
okay,
into discovering that. Did
so
I
yeah,
jump
because
somewhere else? Sorry.
you asked earlier, like, can I pick what this transformation is, right?
Yeah.
And like for me, and when it comes to love and relationships, there's another person. That can't
Mhm.
be a goal. It can't be a goal of mine to fall in love. My goal has to be dating so many times, putting myself out there, knowing what I want, who I am, what I'm looking for. But I can't set goals around other people, right? Like
No.
they have their own thing. But what I can do is based on what I'm learning and uncovering is redefine who I am in this regard, not wait for it just to
Right.
happen as a transformation, but be an active participant in the transformation and
An
make some
active
choices.
participant in the transformation. That's it in a nutshell. You do have to be an active participant in the
You know,
transformation.
I'm going to procrastinate reading this book knowing that I have a task.
Please don't.
We have a really busy weekend. However, I think I'm in charge of episode 107. And I think I'm going to, if so, I think I might continue this conversation to just even the next level from Rebirth. Because we have all this awareness and we're transforming and we get to define, but like,
Let's continue it.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want to continue the conversation along with us, you know what to do. Thank you for listening to this episode. We'd love it if you can share it. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it if you have a minute. A review helps place the show in front of more people. That's so helpful to us. And then you can always reach out to us if you've got ideas, if you've got questions, if you've got myths that you love and
If
you
you
wish
want to
we'd
share your
talk about it.
transformation.
Yes, absolutely. We're here for it. Reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or you can always email us at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day. Bye.
Thanks.